In my opinion, it's time for Milo Apologists to give up the ghost. That includes those on YouTube I admire most. Matt Christianson, Sargon of Akkad, and On the Offensive. Not to mention some of the people whose credibility has begun its erosion due to their own actions, i.e. Alex Jones and Stefan Molyneux. While Sargon took a passive and sort of lumped him in with PewDiePie approach, On the Offensive was just the opposite. He went all in. The only way I can describe that video is On the Offensive made him out to be too fag to fail. Matt Christianson, however, doubled down with an impressive verbal impression of Olga Korbut. Matt, I've honestly enjoyed your evolution. You're approaching uncucked status at this point. Blonde has been a wicked influence on you in a good way. By the way, Blonde, nice waffling, but you lean just enough to the right to escape my tongue lashing. Yes. I'm still a little perplexed that you knew this for yonder months and it never impacted your opinion on the man. We all heard Milo's comments. I'm not going to replay them. I'm not going to transcribe it here. If you haven't heard them in their entirety, stop this video now and click on the specified YouTube link below. Then come back here and decide for yourself. Let me first try to eliminate a few of the inevitable straw man arguments some people go for as soon as I trigger them with my opinion. I am not saying Milo is a pedophile or he engaged in such actions on anyone. I am also not saying he is encouraging the action consciously, but his words are blurring the lines between right and wrong. When he says some 14-year-olds are actually out there pursuing adults and capable of it, guess what? People have done that since the beginning of time. What makes a grown-up different than a scumbag is the grown-up refuses the advances of the child. They have the maturity to understand a child cannot emotionally begin to understand the ramifications of their desire. Now, Milo had no idea what all that meant when he was 14, but now as an adult who makes his living influencing people, he should be aware of every word that leaves his mouth. He does not simply represent himself when he speaks. He also, at the time, represented Breitbart, Simon & Schuster, and a host of conservative groups who paid his speaking and security fees. You can't take money from private or publicly traded companies and not have a responsibility to them. Would you want someone you pay money out to enhance your brand to say what Milo did? If you are okay with that, and ever use the hashtag Pizzagate, congratulations, you have officially achieved the piety of hypocrisy. I love the argument, well, look at Lena Dunham, George Takei, and Bill Maher. They said the same thing in the past, or something similar. I wanted all of them to lose their public position. I tweeted and emailed when George Takei was making TV commercials and Lena Dunham's cable star was rising. I canceled HBO altogether, finding Bill Maher's embrace of the teacher to be disgusting. Where were you Milo defenders then? And I know some of you were there. Those of you who were there, how do you reconcile Milo with your feelings about the deeds and words of the terrible trio I just mentioned? Why is it never okay to blur the line on the subject of adult and adolescent sex? Sexual abusers go after kids of all ages, but the adolescent is the jewel in the crown amongst their ilk. Many children of 14 to 16 years of age have had sexual experiences with adults that were anything but wanted. Some are physical rape, others psychological rape, and most coercion. If Milo is allowed to paint himself as mentally capable of making adult sexual decisions at 14, how much does that cheapen the experience of adolescents whose encounters were unpleasant? You have just added a shade of gray to the clear light of right and wrong. When a line gets blurred, the radius of that blur starts to make the next step in escalation more blurred. Any special exception to the social taboo changes the paradigm of our social compact. Well, aren't those just social constructs? Some people that age were getting married and committing general buggery on adolescents for centuries before what we call modern society. Let me ask you this. Does not the sins of our past embarrass you? I'm sure as shit no virtue signaler, but the conduct our ancestors sometimes, in some ways, makes me very sick. I understand the Arab world started slavery long before Europe, and along with parts of Africa, continue it today. I am not portraying Europeans as the worst sinner or the first sinner. I, as a person, however, do enjoy that now those things are unacceptable. I like going out with people of all colors and races and having a beer and not having anyone look at us cross-eyed. If I were to find a place where that happened, I would be embarrassed. If they were people of my race, I would be embarrassed for people of any race that happened to. What the other guy does not equivocate the conduct I find acceptable. Among things frowned upon in our modern society is adults having sex with minors. Have you, as a conservative, ever spoken out against the Catholic Church and how it swept and still sweeps Priestgate under the rug? How can you approve of what Milo said if you are a Catholic, evangelical, or even atheist who spoke out against the church then? Lessons in giving good head from a priest is not why parishioners drop their hard-earned money in the collection basket. How many lives were destroyed by their predatory behavior? How many of those people went on to suffer psychological issues, domestic dysfunction, and even became predators themselves? What Milo said is, I can handle it and those guys cannot. Maybe not directly, but what other interpretation can you cobble together from his statements, both original and his chance to 2.0 them months later? Letting down those who took a stand and believed in Milo is the worst aspect of this clusterfuck. Do you think people that actually bled real blood for him are thrilled with these statements? A really great YouTuber, MrLTavern, the link to this video is provided in the comments section. His video, Milo, I Didn't Sign Up for This, was the most coherent take on Milo from an Archie Bunker sort of regular guy. The title says it all. Milo, we didn't sign on for this. I have defended Milo before he was exposed to an American audience. I am an anti-feminist. I am especially anti-feminization of men. I fought for him in every venue that sought to silence him. I made memes, and I ran the hashtag #FreeMilo for 48 hours straight to protest his ban on Twitter. I liked what the man was doing, and he did it well. That was worth defending. I can deal with a flawed messenger. I have defended President Trump since he threw his Make America Great Again hat into the ring. I have pushed back against everyone who has taken a shot at our president, and I only believe in him more now than ever before. Locker room comments about what grown men and what grown women are willing to let them do, and adolescent sex with adults, are not the same thing. I had no idea this interview existed. If so, I would have saved a lot of time and effort. I don't get paid for defending him. I did it because I believed in him. What he said would have been a deal breaker to me back in January 2016, but somehow I, among others, did miss it. For that, I am sorry. I have learned now to go deeper in vetting those I defend in a public sphere. Matt, as to your timing theory about Milo's rising star, think a minute. It was all a chain. The book deal blew up his image. Then the riots at USC put him on the sought-after interview map. CPAC and the Bill Maher interview was the icing on the cake. But it was an organic escalation which naturally brought scrutiny from more people. If something like that existed, that was exactly the time you would expect it to come out. Does the fact that it was said a year ago change anything, by the way? If anyone did sit on it, that's Milo's fault for fluffing the cushion. He never showed a responsibility to those who paid and believed in him to get out ahead of this. Someone inside his inner circle should have taken him for therapy of some kind or done something. Time and timing do not lessen the impact his words set off. No matter how much Milo makes you feel like he's a down-on-his-luck friend who really needs you to defend him, ask yourself, how can you do that and not compromise who you are? I'm not saying boycott or ban Milo. I'm just saying what he has to say means nothing to me now. I, as a consumer of infotainment, have walked away from what he has to offer. Suffering a wound to his credibility as he did, I think he should use the approach Rush Limbaugh did after his bout with oxy addiction. Find a place or a physician to help you understand why what you think is acceptable is an unhealthy position, in Milo's case, on human sexuality in the Western world. As people see your personal growth, Milo, then your words can have more meaning to those of us who have lost faith in your judgment to say them. To Matt Christianson, Sargon of Akkad, and On the Offensive, none of this has changed the fact you are all among my favorite YouTubers. I respect your opinions, but I do think in Sargon and Matt's case, they chose emotion over ethics. I'm sorry, I do. I'm certainly not trying to battle either one of them. Just open a few things in the debate I think need rethinking. I hope they took my cheesy animations and humor in the spirit of goodwill which it was intended. OTO is a very different animal, as I saw in the comment section of his video. There really is no way to refute it without stepping into a bog war I respect his other work too much to step into. But if anyone calls me out, I'm not afraid to debate you either. I'd also like to take a moment to shout out to YouTubers Black Patriot Conservative for staying on top of the story. It was like getting the info real time. And to the real WCM channel, White Christian Males, Cameron. He went through the Milo thing, starting as an advocate, and critically thinking his way in a 36-hour period to dropping the Milo banner. Not giving up on him as a human being, mind you, but seeing Milo's flawed judgment as hard to get behind in the status of pundit. Cam, I feel exactly the same, and I think you are a killer big guy for not being afraid to make better decisions when all the information is processed. Not just in the context of Milo himself, but how Milo's words affected lives in the Trump movement. I am not on the left because I refuse to compromise my moral principles. It is not okay for my guy to do something I would call your guy out for. One of the most cliche things people on the right say when the left gets away with something is, what if it was a Republican? How many Milos do we get before we become as hypocritical as they are? Thanks for partaking of this video, and please comment how your conscience allows.